protocol of keeping mics in mute and cameras switched off, or this session will be video recorded, so please be aware of that. If you do not want to be on the camera, it's your choice. Otherwise, you can be. The question and answers we will try to handle through chat box, unless Mercy wants to take it personally with one of you. That's okay. To make it interesting, please give us your name as the country that you are currently in, underscore your name, so we really can put a little bit of geography around our session today. And a couple of times you will get an attendance sheet and a feedback form in the chat box. Please do help us to fill those in. This is an event hosted by ICF Oman chapter with the help of our speaker today, Mercy, who's signing in from New York. I will introduce Mercy to all of us and then hand over the event to her, and then she will take us on that beautiful journey. So for the past 20 years, Mercy has run a successful coaching practice and conducts training and coaching for numerous organizations, including the International Coach Academy, Coach A, Blanchard Coaching, Laser Coaching, and also Clearing Beliefs and other several employee assistance programs. As a master certified coach, Mercy works with executives, entrepreneurs, and other practitioners. She hosts weekly mentor coaching groups and is currently launching her ICF MCC credential prep course. Educated as a teacher and working as a journalist, paralegal, communication director, and campaign manager, Mercy is the eldest daughter of 9 children, where she learned to motivate a divergent group toward a common goal and to persist even in the face of impossible challenges. Armed with this background and a passion for advocacy, she worked in the rough and tumble world of New York State legislature, serving as Director of Communications in both the State Assembly and State Senate. A noted speaker, she has written a book, From Doormat to Diva, taking center stage in your life. Mercy serves up a cocktail of humor, insight, education, and inspiration for life and business-changing impact. Mercy lives in Albany, New York with her husband, who she calls Bub. We welcome Mercy to ICF Oman chapter, and I hand over the session to Mercy now. Please welcome Mercy with emoticons and reaction button.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Wow. Every time I listen to that, I think people must think I can't keep a job because I've had so many of them. But I'm not unlike a lot of coaches, right, who try a lot of different things, learn so much about how people are, what gets in their way. And so I bring all of that to everything that I do. So I'm going to start with a slide deck. And I'm going to pause along the way from time to time, either to demonstrate something or to answer a question. I know we can use the chat box, but by all means, if you raise your hand, and those are those icons at the bottom under reactions, I usually see those too. So we can take it from there. All right, so let's go to sharing the screen and see what we have in store for you today. And this, I have to say that everything I've learned is such a synergy of what other coaches have taught me, facilitators, trainers. Everything I am today is a result of the influence of another person who I felt, really encouraged me. So let's get started with the 7 steps to mastering the 30-minute session. Now, first, let me say it's not about, getting there quicker. what it's about is lasering in, going right for, from the beginning, what will make this a transformational session? What will change a person's identity rather than their activity? Because we know that strategies that are often temporary unless a person has shifted how they're looking at the situation, themselves, or another person. So that's why the 30-minute session can be really an addition to whatever else we offer. I mean, I work for a lot of coaching firms and they require an hour session, but the more I coach, and it's been about 20 some odd years, I found that I could get to at least checking it out with the client about what is going on in their mind. All right. Because we all make very similar, and this is interesting across many cultures, the same mental blocks, or, what we call mental mistakes in CBT therapy. So let's get started here. Let me move my screen so I can see. So again, I have to honor those who came before me and who are still influencing me. So this is an homage to them. And if you ever want more information about any of these people, it'll of course be on your video that they send you, and you can always reach out to me or to them. So longer is not always better. I think there's a kind of a belief in coaching that if I coach for an hour, it'll have more value than if I coach for 30 minutes. However, when we think about that, it's not really quantity of time, it's the quality of the time. So think about reframing that a bit, to equate the impact, the effectiveness of your coaching instead of how long you do it. It still surprises me that even though the profession has grown tremendously in the last few years, especially, coaches still sort of feel like at times they have to, prove themselves, or, their value is invisible. So they're a little hesitant to really step into the power of coaching. And they think, they get stuck in the longer is better mindset. So invite yourself to open up to the possibility, I'm not here to convince, I'm here for you to consider that it can be shorter and with even more impact. All right, these are two silly things that I actually do, and I practiced when I went for my MCC, and I had to submit recordings. And you can imagine if you've ever had to submit recordings, it's a little bit nerve-wracking. It would be totally normal and common to have some apprehension about it. So I learned this from a performance coach. I don't do it very much now with the pandemic, but I do a lot of speaking. And to get comfortable and be natural, this is what he told me. He said, before the recording session or your speaking presentation, sing your thoughts, separate them from their meaning. So if I say, oh goodness, I'm going to speak to the Omen chapter of ICF today, and I sing it rather than just think it, it automatically brings a lightness to your perspective, because we know the body and the mind are all connected. Now, you don't have to do this in front of anyone. You would do it like, I don't know, right before. But I definitely, I really find this helpful. So consider doing that. And as we know, our body, right, and our mind are so interconnected that even our posture when we're about to coach is important, right? If I'm slumped in my chair, if I'm nervous and jittery, we all know take a deep breath helps your whole body and mind relax. So I also feel like if I shake it off, if I just, I don't have to break out in song, although I do sometimes, just to relax yourself, move your body. All right. In my course that I'm teaching, the MCC prep course, what I've noticed is most people do this with a great deal of anxiety. And one way to learn, with more impact is to open up, to be willing to make a mistake, to be foolish or silly or judged. And that whole saying, dance like no one's watching. Well, I need you to coach like no one's watching when you're doing a recording. So I thought this would be a great way to pass on this tip to you. All right. Commitment to listening. This is, again, looks obvious, right? But I notice that we often, because of the way our brains are wired, we more often listen to the story details, like who was in the break room when you had this challenge with your coworker, and you're listening to it happened yesterday, all the details of the story, the narrative, which is important, but it's not who this person is. And you want to coach the person. So you have the challenge of sorting out what is the story, and who is this person in this story? What's making this a problem to them? What idea, perspective, assumption, expectation is going on that makes this a problem for them? So to listen for these, right, you have to let go a little bit of every detail that the person is saying about the situation, all right? And instead, think about the person in front of you. They're confused. They're concerned about making the right decision. They're worried someone will judge them, all right? Or they're confused. That's what we are listening for. And when you reflect back, we reflect very little bit of the story. So, someone can come in, they speak for 2 minutes about what their situation is, and I might just say, so it sounds like you're having difficulty finding that life-work balance that you had a year ago. And I hear that you sort of have an expectation that it should be exactly the same. I'm wondering what that's about. All right. So that's kind of listening to the person instead of the story. All right. If you see something, say something. It's not just a security idiom. We withhold a lot. We have a thought run through our heads as coaches, and maybe we are worried that it's judging someone or something, or we think if we bring it up, it might, I might be wrong. I might offend the client. And you know what? Few of those things are based in fact. You know what I mean? It's like it's understandable to be apprehensive, but seriously, when we don't share what we're seeing, all right, what happens is we might subtly start to move them in a direction because we see the direction, all right, or try to get them to see what we're seeing. And when you practice the competency of direct communication, you want to say what you're seeing. So if someone says to me, my boss just hates me. He hates me, gives me such a hard time all the time. And I don't know what to do about it. So I might reflect back, and then I might say, so what has you sound pretty convinced. What else might be going on here? Because what I'm noticing is it true somebody could hate you? Maybe they do, but sometimes it's just our perception. And something else could be going on here that our client hasn't thought about, like the boss is having a tough time, all right? Instead of personalizing it. So if I see that, or if someone says something that seems contradictory, I have to bring that up. I have to say, well, on one hand, I'm hearing this, and then on the other hand, I'm hearing this. What do you make of that? All right. We want to notice a contradiction, an unrealistic expectation, a black and white thinking, on all or nothing, always and never. All right. Those are perspectives that often get in the way. Now, I'm going to pause after this because the trick to this is to soften your delivery when you talk to your client, but not the message. All right. So if I want to say something like, wow, this situation, it sounds like someone who is going to the hardware store for milk. What do you make of that? Now, what I heard was this person's trying to get something from somebody who has, sounds like, proven they cannot give it. And yet the person is in a world of shoulds. They should do this, they should see this. And I'm looking at it like, well, why do you keep going back there if it's apparent it's not obvious? So how I phrased that was I took the word you out of it. I said, sounds like someone, right? And then I used a metaphor or an analogy. It's very, very helpful. I coach a lot of executives, and a lot of times you've got to really be bold. Otherwise, they do know a lot. They have been very successful. So what do you offer them? You offer them the opportunity to be challenged, and from that challenge to expand themselves. So I've actually used this. It was a call with a VP who was in a job for just 8 months, and they just kept giving him more and more work because he showed up working 24/7. And he had this whole mindset that they should not give him so much work. And what was missing in what he was saying was, what's his role in this, right? So I said, yeah, it sounds like, someone who's given away all their control, sort of like a victim. What do you think? Well, that is a very strong word, obviously. And it did stop this person in their tracks. So I really believe that coaching, you know, I coach people who are going to get where they're going no matter what. The coach offers them a third eye, a way of seeing what they haven't seen, a way of bringing forward new ways, even if there's a shock to it a bit. Coaching is provocative. I was lucky enough at one point early in my coaching career to sit in on a couple of calls with Thomas Leonard, and he always drove this home. We're not here to be friends, right? We want to be friendly, of course, but our job is to point out a new way, another way, a more expansive way. So I want to pause here and just ask if there's any questions or anything about what you've seen so far. Go ahead, Michelle. You're on mute, so you got to be unmuted. Let me see if I can unmute you. I got my light up here, so all right.
Okay.
There you go.
Hey, everyone. So a couple comments. I think that in this particular category, you're talking about mirroring as well. So like if a client is touching their face a lot, sometimes I'll just copy what they're doing and ask them what they notice. Another thing that's really interesting about being bold is I work with a lot of men executives, and I use the analogy of basketball. And I'll say, you know what, let's play hoops for a minute. And I'm going to say a word and I'm going to throw it in your lap. And I want you to bounce it around. And so for me, it's easier to say maybe the word victim or psychological safety or whatever. I'll go, this is the word that's coming to me, and I'm going to toss it your way.
Right.
And that's how I do it for me, because it is hard as a coach. So I just wanted to throw that out.
Oh, I like that. I mean, because, if you toss a ball to me, I could pick it up or not. Right. And if we're just fooling around and there's no score or trophy, then it's no big deal if I don't pick it up. I'm not attached to the outcome. The mirroring is funny to me. What does it give you? As a coach, mirroring, what is the purpose of that? Because I think people do it, and I'm curious, since you seem to know, what does it do for in the context of the coaching?
Body language speaks a lot to me. And I only do 30-minute sessions. So I go fast, but if someone's like this,
Mhm.
or if someone is looking away or touching their face. I had one guy who always was touching his face.
Yeah.
And when I brought it to his attention, he didn't understand it. So then the next session, I just mirrored what he was doing. And he goes, "Why are you touching your face, Michelle?"
Mhm.
And I said, "Oh, I just wanted to show you what I'm seeing you do." And he goes, "That's what I look like?" He had no clue unless I was doing it. And then we had a whole session on the comfort it must have brought him because his mom used to touch his face
And
when
what,
he was scared.
yeah, so what was the goal for this session? Like the relevance to that, I can see how it's very powerful. So I also have a person like that, and but the goal for our engagement was to be more aware of how he's perceived when he's communicating. So that we did talk about body language because he's the same way, but I could just bring it up because it was part of the agreement. Otherwise, I guess I would just say, I'm noticing something, like, are you aware that, this is happening? And I'm wondering what that's about. So
Right.
in master, MCC, that's really what you have to do. You have to like bring it forward, of course, but you want to stay away from over explaining it or anything like it. Not that you were, and it has to relate to the agreement.
Yeah. I'm not so good at that part.
Yeah.
That's why I'm only a PCC, and I'll work towards my MCC later.
I'm sure you'll be able to do it. You sound like you're really open, and that's all it takes is to be more open to it. It's like driving, okay? People want to know what's with the MCC. All right, so it's just like anything else, right? When you were first learning to coach, it was like you first drove. Hopefully, people, if you haven't driven, you've noticed people who drive. So you drive like this in the beginning, right? You just got your license. You're looking left, you're looking right, you're looking in the mirror, you're turning your head. You're being very precise. But you drive in a couple of years, now you're like driving like this, right? And that's what happens to our coaching. And not that that coaching is bad, because I personally think a lot of executive and leadership coaching is blended coaching, right? Um, and there are ways to bring an idea forward without consulting. However, we all know that how it shows up in the workplace is often different than ICF coaching. But if you're going for a credential, it's sometimes you have to get back in the driver's seat and learn to drive a little bit again. So I really appreciate that. Thank you, Michelle. All right, is it Sharitha? How bad did I mess up your name, Sharitha? She's got
Shrestha.
Jeshta.
Yeah.
Jeshta. Oh, that's so pretty. Okay. What can
I have, I have this question. You mentioned about that we can say, I see someone, I noticed that someone uh, is like a victim here. What do you make out of that? So the thought that came to me was that isn't that we are being judgmental by saying that? What are your thoughts on the same?
that great question, because that's what holds us back, right? We think it's a judgment. Okay, to me, it's an observation. And here's the difference. A judgment says you are a victim. That's a judgment. An observation is, it seems like you're giving away your control here. But sort of like a victim. And then always, always, always ask a question. What do you think? How's that land on you? Or as Michelle said, when I throw that your way, what's happening? You see, I'm not attached. They could say, no, it's not, I don't see it that way. Or they can say nothing for a good 7, 8, 10 seconds because you just, you woke them up, as my daughter would say. But that's the difference. One, a judgment is held very tightly and it's your opinion. This is posing something. And, talk about body language. When I'm doing this, I often go like this, like I'm offering this, right? Because it changes your body and your intention. And I always try to take the word you out of it. It sounds like someone who's got their foot on the gas and their foot on the brake at the same time. What do you think? Metaphors and analogies are such an welcomed and an invitational way to bring something forward. I think it's just, because you are being paid, by the way, to have thoughts, ideas, intuitions, observations. That's in the competencies. And where the difference between PCC and MCC in a big way is the ability very effortlessly with no attachment to say something like something's like not adding up here. I was coaching someone once and she had run like 6 marathons and triathlons and all of these things. And here she is telling me she doesn't know how to start a business. And I'm like, wait a minute. So I just said to her, I got this thought running through my head. You're an amazing person. You have accomplished, I'm sure when you started out marathon running, you didn't know exactly what to do. So what's the difference between that and starting a business? Those are provocative questions without, I think we get into this. And again, it's, some cultures, I'm from New York, we're pretty direct, but there are some cultures that it is a little bit, you have to soften that delivery, a lot more. But you still want to say what you're seeing. That's in service to your client. And to not share it, it's almost, everybody says they want to be an authentic coach. Well, an authentic coach shares what they're seeing, what they're sensing. A word pops in your head and you're like, this just popped in my head. Can I share it with you? Yeah.
So that's interesting. And thank you so much for explaining it through all these examples. And I really like the play of the body language. Our body language sums up into what we are trying to put up.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Exactly. So true. All right. Anybody else? Let's see if I see any more hands up. Okay. So I also wanted to demonstrate how you can sense who the person is. You've heard the saying, coach the person, not the problem. People need coaching, problems need solving. So you can tell in the first thing a person says, what might be the belief, thought, idea, mindset that's getting in the way. So if someone has a situation, you can just put out one that you are, you wouldn't maybe never get coaching on, but for the purposes of learning, you're willing to say it. Or perhaps you have a client and you can say the client came and they said this, all right? And then I will invite us to listen for what do we know about this person rather what we know about the situation. So who has something?
Can I ask a question?
Suresh, yes, go right ahead.
So I'm Suresh Gandhi from ICF Oman. And just to tell you, Mercy, Oman is a wonderful country and Muscat is one of the most cleanest and unpolluted cities in the world. Thank you very much for this wonderful short session that you have taken time out to explain to us. My question came up when I heard your example. I thought, the metaphor that you used about driving and how over a period of time you are at ease with driving and you kind of, get used to it. I thought maybe I have an answer somewhere there, but nevertheless, this question was there at the back of my mind, and therefore I'm going to ask you. When we do pro bono coaching, we notice that there is a significant lack of commitment to the goals that the client herself would set up. And yet, despite the fact that the goals are the client or for the benefit of the client and they've agreed and accepted, yet the commitment levels are so low that you find and you wonder that if it was charged for or paid for, would there be a greater commitment? This was part one of the question, and I'm sorry if I can sneak in another one, was the fact.
Go ahead, Suresh.
Yeah, the fact that there are still a lot of sections within our society where they consider coaching as an intervention because the individual may be needing psychological help. And therefore, there is a degree of hesitancy each time you propose coaching as a possible solution. So these two situations come up more often than not for, say, coaches who, like me and one of my colleagues, who are beginners, so to say, in the coaching world, because we have got our certification just about a couple of months ago, ACC certification. And that I thought was a challenge that is coming about. And there could not have been a better opportunity to hear it from the master herself.
Oh my gosh. I think I have to come to Oman. Okay, so.
Oh, that's nice.
Let's start. Let's see. The first question, the commitment. If someone is struggling in life, right? That is a sign. That's an indicator, right? It doesn't mean that coaching isn't for them, but if they're struggling with the basics of life, then you have to ask yourself what makes them coachable. Let's just frankly, let's go to the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? If I have needs met, then that's only then can I really expand my self-awareness, my actualization. So I do think that you can coach people who are struggling. However, three things must be present. One of them is commitment. And that means I need to be committed to receiving feedback, even when it might be uncomfortable. Stretching, getting out of my comfort zone. And I think Karen was saying in the chat that we have to set this up from the beginning. What is the expectations? What will I be doing? I have coached people for corrective action. All right. Often a company will say to me, we don't know whether we should let this person go or not. We think he has potential or she has potential, but they actually want just the comfort that they did everything they could before they let the person go. So money is energy, right? It's an indicator. So if I purchase something from you, I'm saying I'm committed to your service or your product. So when there isn't an exchange of money, not always, but it can very much be a deterrent. And if the company says you need coaching, then you have to have, I think the expression some people use is this like come to Jesus meeting. You have to say to them, listen, this is the bottom line. Your company's paying for your coaching. And that person has to know what the company's goals are and what their goals are and where they mesh and where they don't. Otherwise, the coaching will just be just going through the moves. Right? So I have had this conversation, many, many times with someone who is exactly, the company wants them to show up a certain way. They're not. Often it's because there's some hurt, resentment, right? Some feeling not accepted. So if you can get to that, like what's going on for this person, sometimes they're just like, I need the job. I don't like it, but I need it. Okay, you don't need the job, you want the job. What happens when I say that? You need air, shelter, food, not much else. Those are needs. Everything else is a desire or a want. So,
Right.
and sometimes people say, well, they act like they don't have a choice. So you have to remind them, it seems to me you've made a choice to stay in this job because it's important that you support your family. All right. So with that in mind, what do you want to get out of this coaching today or the engagement? Not everyone is coachable at every time. And what happens a lot of times with coaches is they get into the crappy coach syndrome. They start saying, it must be me. This person just isn't doing, she's not following through. And we tend to take it personally. There must be something else I should be doing, especially when you're new. It's very understandable. But you know what? It's not useful. Yeah, maybe you could have done better. Every day I could have done better, but I can't take that on and swallow it whole. I need to bring that forward. What is going on that you're late to the session? What's going on that you can't pay on time? Everything a client does is information for the coach. It's data, right? It tells you something. Everything. A client comes to the call and they say, oh, my mother-in-law is in town. I can't take it a minute more. She's driving me crazy. But, I don't want to talk about that today. I want to talk about my team at work. You cannot step over that. I might say, okay, I hear you might want to talk about this, but, I hear that you're pretty frustrated with your mother-in-law's visit. Is there something else going on there? Because what you find often is halfway through the session, you realize the problem she's having with her mother-in-law is the problem she's having with her team. People just aren't that unpredictable, really. So be upfront, get the commitment. If you're going to do pro bono coaching, limit it to 3 sessions. So you have an out if it's not working and you feel okay about it. In the beginning, when I coached, I had like a sliding scale. Okay, so you're from Trinidad, the dollar is worth X. Okay, the economy is Y. Therefore, how does this sound for a payment? Especially when it's an individual paying you and not necessarily a company. All right. So directness, because you have an incredible process. And if you're giving it away, then you want it to be recognized as that, but you also have to know that you're only 50% of it. The other 50% is to, they have to show up for it. I think Suresh said he'd like to respond to this. In his experience, the difference, I think, shows up in whether a person is seeking coaching or is being given coaching. Very true. Yeah. That's why I never, if it's a 3-way, if someone's giving the coaching, so there's a sponsor of the coaching and then there's the client, they all have to be on the same page. I can't coach someone into a job or out of a job. And I want to share my screen. Hold on a minute. Let me see if I can find this. Because I think this speaks to it. And I don't want to belabor anything, but I think this speaks to it. This is from a coaching book called The Heart of Laser Focused Coaching. I'll put it in the. So if a person comes to you and they want to, I don't know, be an opera singer, but they soon reveal they can't sing. So if I'm like a coach and they got this vision to be an opera singer, how far am I going to get if they can't, they can't sing? All right. So what happens is they have to go back to the facts, to the truth of it. What is the truth? Well, the truth is that you can't sing. What is it that you see about singing that just has you wanting to do it. And they might say, I want the experience of performing, of being on stage, of being part of a group or whatever it is. Now the vision has shifted because now we have more opportunities to coach, in the coaching. What will give you that experience? And a lot of times a person's truth isn't aligned with their vision. All right. So that's a very simple way to look at it too. Yeah. Okay. Yes, definitely a fantastic book. Thank you, Donna. All right. Anything else before I move into the next bunch of slides? I still want to go back to a situation that recently came up in your life or someone else's life that you can put out there so we can listen with the ears of a coach to what's happening for this person, what's making it a problem for them or challenge. Anybody have anything? Oh, come on. Someone has to have something. I will send that person a copy of that book if you volunteer. All right, Suresh, thank you. There's always one in the group. Go ahead, Suresh. Bring a situation forward, and got to get you unmuted. All right. You're alive.
Okay, great. So my question is, Mercy, perhaps a real situation, and that is one of the potential clients whom I have been speaking. And we talked about coaching as a process and how it is different from other forms of, either teaching or mentoring or consulting. And all of that was very well understood. And when I talked in detail about how the process would go, and I sought a commitment to proceed ahead, after a detailed explanation, the response was, look, I do not have any mental issues that I need coaching. So the perception is that coaching is an intervention because I have psychological problems. And I said, look, no one is talking about psychological problems at all. We are talking of your goals, your vision, how you will improve your own thinking to the issues that you seem to have time and again. And it is only an effort to lead you to the answers on your own. Yeah, but I have no psychological problem. So the mindset of so many people within the society is that coaching is something to do with what's in here.
It's interesting because and on another hand, it doesn't, because, there is a psychology embedded into coaching. It's not simply, well, it can be, right? So you have transactional coaching, which is very much about strategy. And then you have what some people call awareness coaching or laser coaching, or at the MCC level, this must show up. So when I hear that, what goes through my head is what's going through the head of somebody who thinks it's a psychotic. They are thinking, I don't want to be somebody who has mental issues. I have an opinion about that, or a belief that says it is not good to have these things and one shouldn't have them. That's what that person is telling you with that one line. And yes, is it a cultural belief? Yeah, in some ways it is. It's family culture, maybe. It's it can be that coaching is very new in certain areas of the world. But that's what I'm hearing. So if I were coaching that person, I would say, what has you thinking This is about psychological issues. And then be quiet. And they might say, well, because, I don't know, so-and-so said so, everybody knows this, whatever. Okay. Wondering, would it be helpful to explain a little bit about why it's not about psychological, why it's about bringing people into their greatest potential, moving someone from good to great? What if I told you that? All right, you see how I leaned in? Because when you hear this, our posture tends to want to be, oh, yeah, I want to fight this. These people are wrong. I got to get defensive in my profession. Not really that good, you know? Be curious. What has you thinking is a great question, and just fill in the blank. It's open. It's not why, because why can be judgmental, sound like an opinion, you know? But if you say, what has you thinking, or what has you believing, or, you know, what is this idea of, and fill in the blank. It's much more open, much more open. Okay. Is that okay, Suresh? All right. I'm going to go to Simone. Then we'll, I'm asking you to unmute, Simone. You're live.
Yes, hello everybody. Marcy, we are talking about 30-minute coaching sessions. And I was thinking about when you showed the pyramid with the spiritual purpose, vision, truth. How can we do that on a 30 minutes coaching session to identify this misalignment? What are the key questions that you usually do that can help us to maximize the time and check that this misalignment is present in the person?
Great question. I mean, I think people do discovery sessions, right? Like that first intake session where you get, it's not, you do coach, of course, but you're getting a sense of who this person is. What is it they want? Maybe you're fine tuning it a little bit. And so to me, I'm kind of one of those people that I don't use a lot of assessments. If a client comes to me with an assessment, I will take that information gladly. What I do with my, and I'll send this to Gurbinder if I think it's online, I'll find out, is I ask them to write a vision statement before the call. And I give them instructions on how to do that. A vision statement is literally a vision. It's something you imagine in your mind with 1 foot today and 1 foot somewhere in whatever future you decide. The biggest thing that stops people from having a vision is they get caught up on how they are going to do it. Like, I don't know how many years ago, I said I'm going to have my own business and I'm going to travel all over the world. Did I have any idea? But I just kind of saw it when I let go of creating the vision. It's really a vision unfolds. It appears to you literally, and you don't have to be a saint to do it. And when that happens and they're not caught up in the how, like how I'm going to get there, you'll see their values. You'll see the experiences they want. Like, so what has me wanting to travel? What has me wanting to have a beach house? You know, what is the experience of these things? And we talk about that. And I learned so much about my clients in that regard. And the vision, it's not there to you. Some people love to, you know, take it and then make action items with it. They can do that. I usually give them that option. But really, it's putting out there what you really want. No holds barred. You know, it's inviting someone to let go of how you're going to get there. Let go of the strategy. Because there's a little bit of trust. And we know this now from neuroscience. If I imagine myself on a beach harder and long enough and put the industry into it, I will have a house on the beach one day. We go in the direction of our thoughts. But if I said, how the heck am I ever going to afford a beach house? Odds are I'm never going to afford a beach house. So I think anything you do in the beginning it's definitely going to be longer. You're getting data. There are many, many helpful tools for an intake and discovery session. I just happen to use the vision statement. I think, you know what I think? It's what the experience of doing the exercise gives me. It gives me a lot of information about the person. Oh, I love this. I saw, and they're visual. They have a million images. Or somebody's like, I didn't really see images. I see words. Okay, that person's not visual. Okay. Or I really got stuck because I really don't think I can do this. I'm learning so much about them just in how they explain to me their experience of doing the exercise. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
All right, let me go to another couple of slides and then come back to you guys, all right? Let's find my share screen again. All right, here we go. All right, so here we go. The Holy Coaching Agreement. When I first came into coaching, I was a bit of a rebel. I was like, I don't need no stinking coaching agreement. And we weren't really taught it back in 2000, 2004 or so. The coaching agreement really became something the ICF stressed somewhere around 2005 or 6. I forget what, but it was early on. And what is so important about it? Well, we just discussed a lot about what's important. You need to get on the same page. And the way you stay focused in a 30-minute session is you come and you listen to the client's topic, but you recognize the topic is not the agenda. Never believe the first thing somebody says. And I don't mean to discredit like they're lying. I mean, that's just not usually how people unpack information, all right? So they might come and say, you know, I've got to get more organized. I don't know what's wrong with me. My house is, you know, I'm working in my house and it's just a mess. And if I go into strategy, okay, so have you, you know, found a system to organize? Or what have you done in the past? That's all going to strategy. It's too soon. Because the reason this person isn't organized is got some mindset behind it. And you know what, when you start to, you know, what makes this important to you getting organized right now? What is it costing you not to be organized? You know, what is your experience of organizing? And you soon learn that the person A really thinks they should be more organized, but actually they can find anything they need that's not really costing them that much. But there's some should in there, right? Some external, like maybe they hear their mother's voice or their former boss's voice in their head. So the way the MCC session goes, we hear the topic, we explore, all right? Not, you know, we take the first thing they say as a launching pad. And then somewhere around 10, even 15 minutes into the session, you now have a very clear idea of what the client really needs. In the case of the organized, it might be that they said, you know, I just got to let go of this. And I might say, well, you know, what would it be like to give yourself permission to be a disorganized person? All right. Now, what she wanted was to feel better, to not feel different or less than. And we got there. If it changes, you have to recontract. You have to go back. And with MCC level coaching, they expect you to check in on the agreement pretty frequently, even though it's a 30 or 45-minute recording. You know, they want you to check in. Even if you're not sure it's changed or not, you always, you know, I think that's something I learned, to loop back constantly. If the person seems to go off on a tangent, if the person's repeating, you know, the same story, they're giving you what I call evidence. You know, here's exhibit A, why I can't get along with that person. Here's exhibit B, and they're just telling you more and more story. The way to go back to and get them to stop that, because that's not helpful in the coaching, is to say, I hear you, and I'm wondering, is there something other than what you wanted for the session that's coming out of this? Or what is the connection, or what is the link to what, and fill in, say, to getting more organized. Remind them why they came. It may be changing, and it's up to them if it is, right? All right, whoops. I don't know why I did that. Here we go. Do a couple of more slides here. Okay. And I want to say one more thing about the coaching agreement for the coach. This is your life raft, all right? The agreement is the shore, and you may not be able to see the shore, but as long as you're in that raft and you know it's there, you can, what's the word? Row yourself to any shore and check back in on the coaching agreement. Because once you have that agreement, you're somewhat free to explore what's next, what else has to happen. So this is it, explore their responses. All right, so Jason tells you he just got a new job after a few months of trying and is excited about the work. He also says he's putting a lot of pressure on himself to help to keep up with those who have worked for the company for several years and fears that he will not succeed if others think he is flailing. All right, quick. What doesn't add up here for you as a coach listening? What just doesn't add up about Jason's thinking? Oh yeah, I can show it again. Madeline, I think, right? Am I saying your name right, Madeline?
Yes, what, oh, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, he's contradicting himself. So he's excited and then he's judging, thinking that, all right, well, I got this, I'm excited, but am I good enough?
Right.
So isn't there some type of systems thinking, underlying belief that's going on?
Yeah, definitely. It's
Yeah.
the first thing on the face of it, I get excitement, and then I have this like expectation is the theme here. All right. Every coaching session has a theme. They're based on cognitive behavioral therapy. If you ever want to investigate common mental mistakes. First of all, what doesn't add up to me is keeping up with those who have worked for the company for several years and fears that he will not succeed. He just got the job. What is he doing comparing himself to people who've been there for 20 years, 10 years, 8 years, 2 years? That's what
self-sabotage.
Yes. And for me, that's what doesn't add up. Plus, yeah, if I were to reflect back, I would say, so it sounds like your new job is has you pretty excited, and you're concerned that, maybe, what if others perceive you as flailing because, I would use his words, because, you're not up to par yet, or whatever he used. That's a disconnect to me. That is an unrealistic expectation. So, and as Madeline said, yeah, when you hear two words like excited and pressure, you must pay attention to them. They're very telling. All right. So it may sound like a judgment, but I check it out. Like, I mean, it's common sense, isn't it? When you see it in black and white like that. So I would say, Jason, yeah, I hear you're pretty excited about your new job, and I hear that you have a little pressure you're putting a lot of pressure on yourself, with those who've worked for a longer time than you, and I'm wondering, what has you thinking you'll be as good as them in just a short period of time. Or you can even say, if this, you You reflect back. Of course, I always, first thing a client says, I reflect back, always, even in a 30-minute session, because there's a saying that I don't know what I know until I hear what I know. So putting them back, people often say, I said that? Yeah. All right. So that's the contradiction. All right. What has him comparing himself to people, a new person in the job, to people who have been there several years? That's a short and sweet, direct observation. And then you say, what do you think? Or how does that land on you? Or, I'm noticing something. Now, you can ask permission. To me, if you've had a well-developed coaching agreement, you don't need to ask permission. But if you're hesitant or it's more culturally comfortable, then ask permission. I've never had a client say no. All right, so let me get okay. So you're asking yourself this question: what thought, idea, or perspective is limiting or blocking this client from moving forward? And you never ask this question to them. It's sort of like a filter you might think through. All right. Here's the problem. How is the person, what's making it a problem for them? They're comparing themselves with people who, they have an expectation they should be as good as people from who've been there longer than him. And this sounds a little, when you start to really hash it out, it sounds a little like, oh, of course, but people do this. They get blinders on, right? All right. So you're listening for, but never ask the client, okay? Why is this a problem for this person? Why are they telling me the things they are telling me? And even if it's an aside, all right, or laugh, I had someone telling me about, what were they telling me about? And they just kind of laughed 2 or 3 times throughout it. And I asked them, I noticed that you, as you're telling me this, that you laughed a few times, and it wasn't really a funny situation. And I said, what has you laughing? And she said, she took a pause and said, I'm laughing at myself because I'm being, what was she saying? Like, I'm being so significant about this. I know what I have to do. I just have to accept it, but I'm not there yet. Okay, beginning of the agreement. See how just laughing, I got a deep sense of who this person is. And they got the beginning of a shift in their thinking. So these are really helpful. I find these really, really helpful. Once you think of it 30 minutes, so you're exploring the coaching agreement. At some point, there's going to be a shift. The person is starting to, I don't know, do I have it in the next slide? No, I don't. Okay. What the leverage point is. Let me explain this because it's a very specific term. People call it different things. I call it the shift. Let me stop sharing for a moment. Other people call it the leverage point. So what the leverage point is, it's the time in the conversation where the scales are balanced. Here's what I came in not wanting, essentially, and here's what I want. So this is usually uncomfortable. There's some disharmony, some discomfort, and this is what I want. But there's some fear appended to moving forward, some concern, doesn't always have to be fear. All right. It's the faulty thinking that is keeping them from moving forward, right? Some people don't fear a good thing. They fear that in their mind's eye, this will happen. If I leave this job, I'll never work again. All right. I mean, it sounds silly when you say it out loud, but we do get into this because that's where anxiety and fear come from. They come from the always and never. All right. So once we know exactly what they believe is true, that isn't necessarily true. All right. then we can help them shift their thinking and expand it in a new perspective. So when a person is, it's like they started out here. I want this. This is up here. This is what I don't want anymore. And this is up here. And then we coach. It's like a seesaw or teeter-totter. It goes back and forth a little bit. And then you get this balance where they got one foot in the future and they still are hanging on to whatever is keeping them where they are. Because people generally move away from pain more than they move towards pleasure. And there's been study after study on that. So even though sometimes you want to motivate someone and cheerlead, it's more effective sometimes to say, so what is it costing you to compare yourself to people working there more years than you? All right, that's the leverage point. All right. And then it tips like this, and now things are in balance. Once you do that, the action items come organically. So we coached around the, let's use Jason. We coached around that situation. What is it costing you, Jason, to compare? We finally get there. So what do you want? What do you want from the coaching today? We have the agreement, and next thing you know, we're exploring that, and he keeps going back and forth a little bit. And then you just say, so Jason, what is it costing you to stay in this thought that you have to be as good as somebody else with more experience? And it may have developed into something a little bit more, widespread. It's probably some sort of perspective he kind of uses often. And then let's say he gets the shift and he says, well, I really want to enjoy this job. I was so excited when I got it. And so I don't want to worry about this. I don't want to put this pressure on myself. Okay. And acknowledge the awareness and then say, okay, so what does that look like? Next thing you know, they got action after action. They'll be like, well, I think I just have to remind myself that, you know what, I am new in this job, and be okay that I'm new. And I'll say, well, what else can you do to be comfortable and excited about your new job? I always ask what else, because there's always something else. And I also add not just what else can you do to be more comfortable in your job, which was what they wanted from the session. Okay. All right, back up here. Questions, comments? Yeah, buts. Madeline, is your hand still up, or you up? Is it up again?
It's up again. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Well, so what if your client does not come to that realization as swiftly as you just explained, and they're really having a hard time, and this is a pattern that they just cannot break? Because I know we're supposed to go to the past. So how do we move forward with him having that one foot like in the door behind him?
Yeah. Well, I want to first back up to the statement about going in the past.
Mm-hmm.
In coaching, especially at the MCC level, we dip into the past, but we come right out. We don't stay there.
Can you give me an example, please?
So if I said to Jason, let's say he's really can't get a grip on it. So I say to him, so when was the first time you thought you needed to know as much as other people? And you might say, oh my God, there was, and people will surprise you with what they bring up. And they'll say, I moved schools. And so I was a little behind everybody else, and I was struggling to keep up. And I would say, how old were you? 8, 9.
Hmm.
All right. So you're no longer 8 or 9. What's more true? What's more possible? Or what is it costing you to be 8 or 9 when you're a grown-up?
Right.
And then right away, you're just back into coaching. But that's very significant because beliefs are formed when you're 7 to 8 years old.
Yeah.
And you would be surprised. But people did at that age because they don't have the cognitive ability to say, like if your mother calls you lazy, like my mother did, I didn't have the ability to say, well, you know, Mom, I'm not actually lazy. I'm kind of unmotivated by folding clothes every day. Right? You know, you can't say that. And if you did, I'd probably have a shoe aiming for my head. So you collapse it, right? You say, I'm lazy. Not, I can be lazy. In English, especially, you are, in the English language, you become that thing. I am lazy. And you know where that belief leads you? Well, I'll tell you, to burnout. Because I spent most of my life trying to prove that I wasn't lazy. And a lot of people do this. You're trying to prove something you think is a dark side, and you wind up making choices that just don't make sense, like, because, you know, it didn't make sense. But when I came to the realization that, and a coach helped me with this, I have to tell this little story. I left my job. I walked off a 6-figure job. I was completely a mess. I had migraines, acid reflux, chronic fatigue. I was just a wreck. So I left and I hired a coach eventually, which I didn't even know that much about coaching. And I was talking about this fear of like, I'm never going to do anything again. I got to keep going. I got to get on the performance, achieve. And she said, well, I have a challenge for you. Are you up for a challenge? And I said, okay. She goes, that for the next week, you are not to get off the couch. You can go to the restroom, you can have your food, you can read, you can watch TV, anything you can do from the couch. Of course, you know what my reaction was to that? Part of me was frightened because I really truly believed I'd never get off that couch at some level. And the other part of me was like, here's the achiever. What if I can't do a whole 7 days? Right? So by the 7th day, you know, we had our call and she goes, well, how was it for you? I said, well, in the beginning, it was really awkward. Then I started to get used to it. And then I was really restless. She goes, so what have you learned about yourself? That it's not true. I'm never going to get off that couch. And you know what? Resting felt really good. And it shifted. I mean, that's a shift in your identity. It's okay to be lazy sometimes. Yeah. Now, Madeline, did I answer your question? I get on these roar and I don't know if I answered it, but yes, I think I did. You dip into the past, but you come out. All right. It's the same when someone says, I just can't do this. I'm an idiot. And they say it offhanded. I'm an idiot. I'm stupid. And you say to yourself, that's not my experience of you. When was the first time you thought yourself stupid? And they said, oh gosh, I had this teacher when I was, in 3rd grade and I could just not keep up with I'm not good at math or whatever. And I say, where's that teacher today? And some of them will say, I don't know. I said, well, I know where they're renting space in your head. So what's it going to take to let go of that 3rd grade teacher's voice? That's reminding them that they're not 7 or 8. They have choices now. I'm going to write in the chat. There's Lion Goodman, a really close friend of mine, does the belief closet or clearing beliefs process. Clearing beliefs process. And he has a book, Creating on Purpose. So, and I think you can get it. I don't know how easy it is for you guys to get things on Amazon because it's easier here. but you can check that out. And you can always email him too, because he's really very generous about, like, if someone wants his book and stuff, he'll make a way to get it to you. The other book I'm referring to is The Heart of Laser Focused Coaching by Marian Franklin. And coach the person, not the problem. And that's by Marsha Reynolds. Dr. Marsha Reynolds. Marsha Reynolds. Let's see if I got this right. IA Reynolds. That's my, those are the 3 books I'm using in my ICF credential prep course. I find that I have bookshelves full of coaching books after this year's, but I like, in each one of them, there's some.
Can you please share your screen? I think you put it on your slide, but it's not shared.
Did I? Oh, hold on. Share screen. Where is it? Here it goes. Here we go. Let's go backwards. All right. So this is about my prep course. You can check it out if you want. I don't have. I used to. I don't know. I thought it might have been in a form slide, but those, they're in the chat. Again, I'm not sure how like, I just know there's issues with Amazon in different parts of the world. And there is something called a Mobi file, which you can download if you have challenges with getting a Kindle version of a book. And I have the instructions for that. So I can send that to Gobinda as well to give to you. And I think it was the vision statement too that I was going to share with you guys. All right. So.
But I think the books you were recommending for us, we couldn't see it. Maybe you would.
I sent it to just Teriel.
Okay. Can you please post it in the chat?
That's weird. I'm going to send it to everyone. Here we go. Everyone.
Yeah, that'll be easier.
And here we go. Let's see. All right. Hopefully it'll let me copy and paste this, which would be helpful. If not, I can always send them to you, Gobinda.
Or you can send it to me and I'll do that.
Yes, I will. I'll send it to you, the 3 books, because it won't let me. I don't think I can go backwards and do, to change it, and it doesn't let me copy it.
No, you can't copy from the chat. So,
yeah.
Okay.
All right. And I think I can. Can't you can't, let's see, file. No. Okay. All right. So we have time for some questions and comments and curiosity. I'll give you a minute. Oh, I've absolutely, you're speechless. You can just raise your hand on the reactions.
Mostly I have a question. Sorry, Sylvia goes first. And then,
Sylvia and then Gobinda. Go ahead. Let me have, all right.
Okay. Okay. Do you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you very much. It was really awesome what you share with us. I'm so excited. And I have a question. I'm preparing myself for MCC credentialing process. What would be the best advice that you can give people which are traveling this path?
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you my story. I was took a coach training program. It took me like 4 years to decide to get my PCC. Predominantly because the credential wasn't as needed then. But as I got approached by more and more companies and internal situations, I thought, yeah, I'm going to get my PCC. No problem there. Then my MCC. I submitted 2 recordings. One passed, one didn't. All right, okay. And by the way, did I mention I was teaching coaching for an international school that represents 90 countries? And I didn't pass one of the recordings. So I went back and forth a couple of times. And what I explored, is what I said to you earlier. I had to unlearn to do some things. And then I needed language, all right? New language, like what has you? New ways to soften the delivery, but be direct. Because that observation, when you look at what is expected in MCC level coaching, let me see if I can share that with you. That might be helpful. Escape, get out of there. If I can get it up really quickly, I will. Let's see. All right. Nope, that's not it. But I think I can find it. Okay, let's see if this is it. Oh, yeah. But anyway, when you get to the MCC level, what happens is you're expected, first of all, there can be no performance. It can't feel like you're trying to be a brilliant coach or come out with the perfect question. It has to feel effortless. And so for me, who was a natural performer, that was a little challenging. So I had to just practice. I recorded everything just so I would stop thinking that I was being recorded. The other thing is that they do expect this, that you do only speak 20% of the time. They really emphasize that. So a lot of the, like reflection should be very crisp and succinct. It has to be there, but they don't want a lot of, it'll detract. It'll start to sound like you're talking as much as your client. Pausing, literally, allowing the coaching, the client 6 to 7 seconds of silence when you feel like something's percolating. Because if you step over that, then it'll compromise because they won't see a competency demonstrated. I have to say that the most important thing is the agreement. One of the sessions I submitted, they had like a bar graph, like where you were in MCC, PCC. Well, I was everywhere except for a smidge from the coaching agreement on MCC. And I got that recording not accepted. So the thing about that, though, is the agreement cannot sound formulaic. You should have little or no coach jargon in there. So, and it shouldn't sound like I said, like step 1, step 2. It has to come, naturally. It has to follow what that client is saying. So it's I'll share this with you. I put this together. I took assessor's training, and I put this together for my course. I'll share it with you here. I took everything I knew about how they assess coaching sessions at the MCC level, and I put it into one document. And this gives you the difference between the PCC level and the MCC level. And here it's just the coaching agreement. So fully explores what the wants from the session. So the topic is not the agenda. You need to explore that. You need to establish measures of success, and that can be, it doesn't have to be on a scale from 1 to 10. It can be, so how do you know this session's been valuable to you? What's going to be different by the end of our session? Those are measurement questions. And then very clear about the agreement. If the agreement is not clear, just keep going till it is. Coach regularly checks whether direction of coaching is continuing to serve the client's coaching purpose. All right. So if they make change in direction, you must recontract based on the client's feedback. So there is a chart let me stop sharing. Where'd I go? Okay. There is a chart on ICF core competency comparisons, which you can get, just by Googling it. And that's one of the documents I referred to in this. So if you want to look at that. Also on my site, because I also do mentor coaching, mercymaglino.com. There's a resource tab, and you need a password, and it's masterful space coaching. No, masterful space coaching, all lowercase. And I have examples of the MCC recordings that I did pass. So it's there.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Shilpa, I see your hands up.
Hi, Mercy, and thank you so much for sharing. So I'm a beginner. I'm like towards the end of my ACC. I'm just going to go, through my mentoring. But thank you for putting me at ease today. You've been so authentic about the journey and sharing your experience. The part where you said, dance like no one is watching you. I actually do that because that's the only way I can breathe during my session. So thank you for that. And then also going with the gut and the direct communication, right? Especially when you're just starting off, they literally give you the Gatorade or the Kool-Aid and say, this is what you drink, and you do. And every time I've not listened to my gut, I feel I've taken the longer route to get where I needed to. And if I had just asked that question in the first 5, 10, or whenever I felt it, it would have, done the shift that you talked about.
Oh, that's so true. It's just been my experience too. If you see something, say something. And it doesn't even have to be too direct. It can just be, something's not adding up here. I heard the word excitement and I heard the word pressure. What's happening there? Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, I have already looking back at my transcripts now. So thank you.
Yeah, good. All right. So I see something that says India, VJ. Tell me how to say that. Ask to unmute. You're on mute now. There you go.
Thank you. Yeah, you can pronounce my name as Viji.
Viji, okay.
Thank you, Mercy. So enjoyed being in your space, and everything was just so practical and so insightful. I had one question though that I was curious about. Why did you pick on this topic for today's webinar?
Because I think I've done it for other ICF chapters, and it's been well received. There was a time when you submitted a recording, it had to be 30 minutes. Now it doesn't, but I can tell you from an assessor's point of view, not that I'm one yet, but if I have to listen to an hour when I think it should have been seen in 20 minutes, right away that session's going to be compromised. So aim for 30. If you go 40, that's great. But aiming for an hour, I just found that it was too long. Okay, makes sense, Viji? Okay. I see we have like 1 minute, so I want to hand it back to Govinda.
Thank you, Mercy. And what an evening it has been for all of us from around the world, right from India to Middle East, all the way to New York, and I guess across Greece and Europe as well. Thank you, everybody, for joining in. And let's give a big round of applause to our facilitator for the evening, Marcy Megalino for taking us through this awesome 30 minutes, mastering the 30 minutes coaching session. I always thought that unless I do 90 minutes, my client won't be happy. So I guess I need to do it a little different now and make it 30 minutes. Mercy, really appreciate taking time out for ICF Oman chapter today. And on behalf of ICF Oman chapter, my colleague here, Faiza, and everybody else who's here from Oman, Suresh, we really thank you and much gratitude and thanks to you for being here today.
Thank you so much for fulfilling my purpose at this point in my life, which is helping other coaches. So take care. Have a great day or night. Tomorrow's another day. And I hope to see you again soon. Okay. Take care now.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye, everybody.
Shall I stop the recording?
Yes, please.